This is Anthony from Supernal magazine, Australia, and we're interviewing Donna Campisi. Donna, thanks for joining us on this first of our interview series.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, you made a bit of time to come to make it happen, so that's great. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, we did.
But tell us a little bit about an overview of who is Donna.
Yeah, I didn't practice this question.
Well, you weren't supposed to.
I know. Donna is just an everyday person. That's how I describe myself. Yes, I do have an amazing story, I suppose, and that's why you're interviewing me. But I don't see myself as that, to be honest. I see myself as an everyday person. So Donna, is your everyday person that likes to, I suppose, challenge myself at the same time, but likes to just be considered the everyday person, especially, I suppose, when growing up as a younger child, I wanted to be like everyone else because there was a little bit of a difference, I suppose, about me. With having a stroke at a young age and, being in a wheelchair and learning to walk and talk again and all of that. My goal always was, as a young child, just to be like everyone else. I didn't want to stand out. I always had a happy upbringing, whether before and after the stroke. But I was your normal child, energetic, loved to just be out there and do what kids do. But I did get very sick at the age of 7 and very sick to the point where I did stay home from school and my parents were concerned. We did, I had kind of flu-like symptoms, but it was a little bit more, vomiting, diarrhea, all of that. But I remember even not being able to quite walk properly. My mum had to half carry me into the doctor's clinic. It happened overnight. I was actually in my parents' room. They were keeping a close eye on me, where I actually had the stroke. So my body was shaking, my eyes rolled back. This is how my parents describe it to me. And I just lost all control of my body and lost my speech. And, of course, my parents were in shock and rushed me to the local hospital where they did many tests on me.
Which would have been pretty shocking for your parents as much as anything else.
Definitely. I look at it as an adult now and what my parents must have been feeling and going through. As a child, you don't think that. As a child, I was just glad to have my mum, especially, being there every day because, like I said, we were from Mildura and flown to Melbourne, so my mum was there, my dad was back at home with my siblings. So as a child, I was just grateful that my mum was there all the time with me, but you don't think of as a child, you don't really think about what your parents must be going through. Oh, they had a list of things actually, but through doing a lumbar puncture, do you know what that is? Yeah, it's for those who don't, it's when they put a syringe basically in your spine and draw out the fluid and test that and find out that I had meningitis, I had staph septicemia, a hole in my heart, a heart murmur. There's another thing called spleno something or other. It's but I can't pronounce the name. I had a swollen spleen basically, and sort of damage, of course, to the left side of my brain, which affected the right side of my body, which made me immobile. So I was unable to walk. My hand was very clenched back then, so it's taken a lot of work to get it to this place that it is now. I was right-handed actually, and now I just became left-handed. And the loss of speech as well. So I think I've named all the
If that's not enough, we can add more.
I shouldn't really laugh about it, but it was a serious, we can laugh about it now, but it was serious back then. And I'm very lucky to be alive. Like, doctors told my parents that they said Donna is lucky to be alive, but they said, don't expect her to be walking or talking again when she goes home. If it's something that you truly want, not someone else's idea. If someone else said to do something and I'd go, oh yeah, that's good. And it's happened to me in the past with, you know, goals or whatever, and suggested to me to do something. I thought, yeah. And then I've tried, and then I just really didn't have that, my heart wasn't really into it.
Yep.
So that's when I thought, nah. But if you really want to do something, and that's how everyone asks, how did you do the marathon? It's just, and they say to me, I get this all the time, I couldn't do that. But my response is, if you really wanted to, you could.
Could, yeah.
And you'd make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. No, I like it.
Encourage people, and I have come across people as well in day-to-day life who know that I've had this stroke, or who have seen me, heard me speak or whatever, have come up to me and told me about their issues if they've had. I just really encourage them to keep on going with that physical therapy and occupational therapy and whatever else they're doing, because it is easy to give up because you don't see things like happen instantly. Like we all want it to. It's like anything, like, you know, bodybuilding or, you know, going to a gym, weight loss and everything else. Like people just want it to happen like that. It doesn't. So if you keep at it, it will, you know. And that's what I say about my recovery. It took a lot of work. There were tough times, yeah. And then there were happy times. Like it wasn't all doom and gloom. I really want to you know, particularly focus on that, because I don't want people to think my childhood was doom and gloom. It wasn't.
Then you ended up in hospital again about 14.
Yes. Another incident that was like, it went on for a couple of weeks. The symptoms, like getting really tired easily, thirsty, just going to the toilet, not even wanting to eat. I lost a whole heap of weight. I remember someone thinking that I had anorexia, which I wanted to eat, but I just couldn't. I just didn't. Yeah, it was a strange symptoms that doctors didn't pick up straight away. I got to the point where I looked like a skeleton. And I happened to be in Melbourne, even though we still lived in Mildura. I happened to be in Melbourne. We came for an event. I think it was my auntie's wedding, that's right. But all I remember about that wedding was just drinking, not alcohol. I was 14, okay?
Yeah.
But just drinking, going to the toilet, because that's the symptoms of diabetes. And the next day I was so ill to the point where my parents took me to my grandmother's doctor. And this is kind of another, whether it's funny or not, I kind of smile at now I do. The doctor said in front of me to my mum, after feeling around my stomach, and I'd said that I was in pain and that, and he said, I think Donna needs psychiatric help, but we'll do blood tests on Monday, because this was Sunday. And so my parents could see that I was just I was in a worse state, so they just rushed me to the Royal Children's Hospital again. And that's where they picked it up, that I had diabetes type 1. Yeah. I thought it was a really interesting question. I'd never been asked this. This person said she knew I had the stroke, and she was looking at me one day, and I could see that she was looking at me and thinking, what does she do? And she was just observing, and she said, Donna, what can't you do since you've had the stroke? And I actually thought that was an interesting question, because I've always tried to focus on what I can do, not what I can't. Had to think about it for a while. And then I said to her, you know, I've never felt confident with running since I was 7 years old. And I was probably in my late 30s then, maybe. Yeah. So that'd been quite a bit of, you know, time since I'd actually ran. So it was before the stroke. So that sort of, I suppose, planted the seed in my head. So one night when I walk fine, well, as fine as can be. I do have a slight limp, but I don't get tired from it. So I just went on my usual walk, and I was on along Elwood Beach, actually, along the walking path, and I just noticed that particular night many runners coming back and forth past me, and I thought to myself, maybe I should give this running thing a go. But I was by myself as well, and I was a bit nervous about it, thinking, you know, what if I fall? And all of those doubts that you have. And I thought to myself, well, I've fallen plenty of times before anyway. So I gave it a go. And of course I was counting the steps to myself. And I did it a few times, and the highest I reached was 30 steps. 30 really wobbly, yeah. I want to inspire people and encourage them. I think you have to do something bigger. Anyone can run a 4-kilometre fun run. And I thought to myself, anyone? I can't. Oh, I couldn't at that stage. I didn't know if I could. And he said, Donna, you should run the Melbourne Marathon in October. And I just thought he was crazy. I couldn't even think of the kilometres of what a marathon was at the time, but I knew it was long.
Yep.
So that's where it all began, basically. November 2012, and the marathon was in October 2013. So I had 11 months, basically, to train from 30 steps to a marathon.
Which is amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
The Ks in a marathon, are you going to tell people that? How many Ks are in a marathon?
A long way.
Yeah.
42.2 Ks.
The mental part of it. How hard was that for you to drive yourself, or was that quite easy because you were determined at that point?
I had really good coaches. Sean and Chris were great, because there were times where it was tough. Like, you're out there on your own. I didn't have Sean beside me every day coaching me and running with me. So it was that mental thing where I had to keep on track mentally. And I always talk about goals when I talk with people about achieving goals, as I go back to the why. So in my mind, like, some days I would be struggling, I'd be sore, I'd be, why am I doing this? And then I'd remember why. And it comes back to the reasons why I started. And that was for my own personal challenge, for the Royal Children's Hospital, for the people that were supporting me, because I grew a following on Facebook, and then I'd do media interviews, and I thought, well, I've told all these people I'm going to do it now.
I'm committed.
Going. And I also had a personal reason why as well, with my brother, who passed away at the time of my training, and when he passed away in March of 2013, a few people asked me at the time of the funeral and after, they said, Donna, are you going to still do the marathon? And straight away I said, of course. And I just said my brother Brian would want me to. He wouldn't stop. He was so encouraging of me. He was, one of my biggest supporters all throughout my life, really.
I didn't end up with the correct figure, but I think you raised over $36,000 for the Royal Children's Hospital.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which I'm pretty proud of and grateful for the support that I received. Yeah,
I just think, that's an amazing effort. I mean, it's an amazing hospital. Obviously, I'm a bit Melbourne-centric, but but I have spent time in and out of the Children's Hospital, I do understand it. And there's a sense of pride in you, and while you're very humble, you do show your pride. You work hard to do what you've done. Yeah. How does that satisfy you when you see people excelling because of hearing your story?
That is the biggest buzz, and that's part of my reasons why, I suppose, how I said I had a following. Even training at the time, I hadn't done the book, I hadn't done any book, but just the response from people. I'm not going to touch everybody, and some people are just going to walk out and go, oh, that was a nice story, and go, but maybe later on it'll come to them as something that they've heard from me. But if I always just say, look, if one person has got what I'm saying, something out of it, my job is done. But I know many people have, and that really, I just can't even put it in words, Anthony. I just don't know how to explain it. It just,
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Because again, you inspired a whole lot of people when you did your talk that afternoon at Busybird.
Oh, good. Did I?
Yeah. No,
I did speak to many lovely people, but it wasn't about my story. It was about the book that I was launching.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's, again, from a point of view of, we were there, we've all contributed to books, or we've done this, or we've done that, and you're there launching it and having a talk. It's not so much about the book, it's about the support. I think the most things I got out of that launch with yourself and other speaker, you both had amazing stories, quite different, similar, hardship, getting back, moving on, and going on to achieve things that a lot of people think they can't.